Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Glover, and it seems like just about everybody is talking about the total solar eclipse coming next Monday, where they're going to see it, how they're going to protect their eyes. But animal welfare experts are also encouraging us to think about animals on Monday. Anam Khan joins us live from the downtown. And Anam, you have been looking into what we should be doing with our animals. What are you learning?
Well, Chris, a lot of people are saying that they're going to be staying home on Monday just to avoid the anticipated traffic and congestion. But the Toronto Humane Society is recommending that people keep their pets home. There's just a lot that scientists don't yet know about how this moment is going to impact animal behavior. In fact, research teams across North America and even here in Toronto will be studying those effects on Monday. A rare total solar eclipse is right around the corner, and while humans may be excited about the event, there's a lot of questions about animal behavior.
I heard that cows and horses act weird.
Pet owners being particularly cautious.
I think just to avoid anything, just to keep them inside and staying home with them is probably best.
That's the advice the Chief Veterinary Officer at the Toronto Humane Society is giving. She's urging pet owners to keep their animals at home. And it's not because cats and dogs will look up at the sun. It's because of the large crowds, travel, and loud noises.
There's going to be a lot of human excitement and human activity. If you are feeling anxious or nervous or excited, our pets often feel that and mirror it back to us.
She encourages people to comfort their animals and provide distractions to divert their attention from the unusual event outside. And don't encourage them to look at the sky. A study published by the National Institute of Health in the States shows that approximately 75% of animal species showed behavior changes during a total solar eclipse back in 2017.
Most of them were regular nocturnal behaviors, so getting ready to go to bed kind of behaviors, and sort of the second group was anxiety.
She's also urging people to be aware of wildlife and livestock on the road, because the sudden darkness can cause unpredictable behavior, like straying on the road. But a potential change in animal behavior is being embraced by the Toronto Zoo.
You know, I think this gets to core elements of who we are as a species. We're curious.
They're asking visitors to help them document what the animals do before, during, and after the eclipse. They're even handing out free solar eclipse classes.
And will this shift in sunlight impact their behavior? Will it trigger them? Will they start to kind of put things to bed a little early or start getting up early?
He says data will be collected by their science team, and they'll even share their research with other zoos in North America. And it's not just animals. Research teams will also be studying plant behavior. And all because this is also rare. We won't have another shot at a total solar eclipse like this in this area for another 20 years.
Anam, I got to tell you, in all the excitement, I bet a lot of people had not been thinking about this one, but thank you for bringing it to our attention tonight. Now turning to another important day of testimony at the trial of a man accused of killing a Toronto police officer. Umar Zamir pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Jeffrey Northrup in July of 2021. Today, a collision reconstruction specialist provided testimony that Northrup was sideswiped by Zamir's car, knocked to the ground, and then run over. That contradicts the version of events provided by 3 officers who were at the scene the night Northrup died. Greg Ross is following the trial for us.
Today, the Crown called Officer Jeff Bassingwaith, an accident reconstruction specialist with Toronto Police. The Crown showed this video to the jury, created by Bassingwaith inside the parking garage. It's a digital model created using a 3D laser scan showing the location where Jeffrey Northrup was struck by Umar Zamir's car. In addition to this, the jury saw pictures from the scene, which showed what Officer Bassingwaith referred to as acceleration marks. He said they were created by the tires on Zamir's car. In other images, the jury saw what Bassingwaith said were body scuff marks created by Northrup. In order to recreate the circumstances from the early morning hours of July 2, 2021, Bassingwaith said he also relied on fingerprints and smudges found on Zamir's car by forensic investigators. He determined that Northrup was sideswiped while the car was reversing, knocking Northrup to the ground. He believes that as the car accelerated forward, it went over Northrup, causing his body to roll and tumble underneath. Bassingwaith believes both of the car's front and back wheels went over Northrup. This contradicts testimony provided by 3 officers who were on the scene. They testified last week that Northrup was standing in front of the vehicle with his hands raised in front of him. The officer said Zamir then accelerated into Northrup. That testimony was also disputed by this security video from the parking garage provided by the defense. It shows Zamir's car reversing out of the parking spot before accelerating forward. Northrup cannot be seen standing in front of the car. Bassingwaith says he was not consulted by the Crown or the lead officer in this case before charges were laid. He's expected to be back on the stand tomorrow to continue cross-examination by the defense. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A major police investigation to tell you about tonight. Hundreds of stolen cars have been recovered before being shipped overseas. The OPP made the announcement today in Montreal, but officers say approximately 75% of vehicles recovered were stolen here in Ontario. Dale Manukduk has that story.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
The results of Project Vector are in, an operation to recover stolen vehicles at the Port of Montreal before they could be illegally exported. Since last December, 390 shipping containers were opened, 598 stolen vehicles were found. More than 430 were taken from the Greater Toronto Area. According to the OPP, it's simply a matter of geography.
The proximity of the 400 series highways makes it easier for the suspects to get the vehicles to Montreal. And once at the Port of Montreal, as big as the port is, and as, 1.5 million shipping containers a year, 750,000 of those approximately dedicated to export. It's a huge operation.
So was Project Vector. The OPP collaborated with multiple agencies, including GTA Police Forces and the Canada Border Services Agency. In addition to Project Vector, CBSA has intercepted over 300 cars in GTA rail yards since the start of the year.
These efforts will continue and are also helping to disrupt organized crime and to get stolen vehicles back to Canadians.
According to Equite Association, who also assisted in the investigation, a vehicle is stolen every 5 minutes in Canada.
This is about money. It's about organized crime using the proceeds of vehicle theft to fund their criminal operations. So it's a significant event. So this is a great day in the fact that we've caused a significant disruption.
The nearly 600 cars recovered are valued at $34.5 million, but for the cars that do end up overseas, the work doesn't end.
There's extreme efforts to repatriate those vehicles, bring them back, working with the RCMP liaison officers, working with Interpol, working with police of jurisdiction, again, in an effort to cause that disruption.
Most cars stolen nowadays are done through the reprogramming of the car's computer or key fob, often with tools that can be purchased legally online.
Unfortunately, though, as the manufacturers deploy technology to secure those vehicles, the criminal element is also out there researching and defeating those as soon as they're out. So any step that we can take to ensure that these types of devices are not lawfully sold in Canada would be a step in the right direction.
Several of the vehicles were connected to violent crimes, including carjackings and home invasions. No arrests were made during Project Vector. However, local police forces are continuing investigations relating to the stolen vehicles. Dale Manukduk.
Welcome back. The Ford government made a significant healthcare announcement today. It is spending $9 million on the country's first medical school focused training primarily on our primary care doctors. And the need, of course, is clear, with 2.3 million people in this province still without a family doctor. And today, the Premier also made a bold statement saying he wants the spots solely dedicated to Ontario students. Ali Chiasson has more.
Premier Doug Ford, his ministers and local politicians signed the shovel that will soon be used to ceremonially break the ground at the York University Medical School.
It will be the first medical school in Canada that is focused on training primary care doctors, with 70% of post-grad seats devoted to primary care.
Millions of Ontarians don't have a family doctor. Once at full capacity, the school will include seats for up to 240 undergrad students and 293 postgrad students. Ford says this will help address the doctor shortage long term.
We can't stop and we won't stop until we connect everyone in Ontario to primary care.
The York University Medical School campus will be situated near Vaughan's Cortellucci Hospital. The Premier already waxing poetic about the potential.
I want 100% Ontario students, going to these universities. And I'm not being mean, but I'm taking care of our students, our kids first. Wouldn't it be great if kids that grew up in Vaughan went to the medical university and worked here at Cortellucci Vaughan Hospital? I think that's a great story.
But that's not always how the story goes. Retaining the doctors we train locally can be a struggle. How do they ensure Ontario keeps the talent? President of York University, Rhonda Lenton, says that will be worked into the curriculum.
They'll be spending their learning opportunities, their electives and so forth, right in the communities from which we recruit them and from where we want them to stay.
The York University Medical School is just the latest addition in medical education in the province, with Toronto Metropolitan University establishing a new medical school in Brampton set to open next year. York's will open in 2028. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Vaughan.
All right, so with more schools focusing on medical training and family medicine, questions remain about whether it will put a dent in Ontario's primary care crisis. Patrick Swadden has that side of the story tonight.
York University is going to train new family doctors, and Ontario needs lots of them.
So just relax for me.
2.3 million Ontarians are currently going without, a number the Ontario Medical Association expects to double in the next few years as family doctors retire, reduce patient rosters, or go into other specialties.
For perspective, 6 physicians in Sault Ste. Marie are retiring from Group Health Centre, and that led to 10,000 patients abandoned.
OMA President Dr. Andrew Park says patients without family doctors don't live as long and have a lower quality of life. He welcomes the new medical school, but
we're not going to train our way out of this problem. The greatest capacity to absorb those 2.3 million patients is what exists in the current system.
Meaning getting the family doctors we already have back into the practice or reducing barriers so they can take on more patients.
I think it will do very little to actually improve the situation.
This family doctor isn't optimistic that a new medical school will solve the problem.
So we have over 5,500 trained family physicians in Ontario right now who are not practicing.
So what's the problem? Well, many simply don't want to practice family medicine.
It's just really not become a sustainable thing to do to practice comprehensive family practice in Ontario.
That's why Hijazi says he's leaving family medicine, one of many to do so, citing the 20 hours a week spent on unpaid admin tasks instead of seeing patients, and pay that hasn't kept up with inflation.
The compensation that family physicians are receiving has not kept pace with the rising costs of running a business.
Kumanen says compensation for family doctors needs to be competitive with other specialties. Most family physicians are small business owners and have to pay staff and overhead costs with their OHIP funding. Meanwhile, Kumanen says a central referral system would reduce time spent on admin, as would streamlining insurance forms and eliminating the need for patient sick notes for short-term leave.
We know it is possible to turn this crisis around.
These new seats at York University, they represent Ontario's doctors of the future.
Hopefully, ending up where Ontario needs them most. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
The University Health Network says a system outage that hit Toronto General, Toronto Western, Princess Margaret Cancer Centre, and the Toronto Rehabilitation Institute has been fixed.
There's going to be a full review of all potential contributing events, and everything will be considered, but I think it's too soon in the process to comment definitively as to what actually were the contributing factors.
Earlier, the health minister said the problems which affected UHN's website, as well as patient portal and record systems, were caused by the weather, specifically the wind. The issues were first identified early this morning, but officials say service was restored around noon. Premier Doug Ford says a new hospital will be built in Durham, and it comes as he faces political pressure from Whitby's mayor. Elizabeth Roy wants the premier to provide a timeline for the hospital's construction. Roy says she's collected the names of thousands of people who support her, and the premier is suggesting the way the mayor has gone about gathering those names should be investigated.
We've committed to make sure we have a hospital in Durham. We're going to go through the process. And I'm not going to be bullied by that mayor out there that's constantly going out there and offering everything under the kitchen sink. And maybe the integrity commissioner should be looking into, are politicians allowed to offer gifts if they get your email? It's really unbelievable.
Elizabeth Roy responding to the Premier's comments in a press release, saying Doug Ford is misdirecting the public. Roy says offering prizes, as the hospital advocacy campaign did, helps drive participation and is used by many municipalities. Roy added that standing up for the residents of Whitby is not being a bully. For the first time, the Ontario government is confirming that several patients have been charged fees under its controversial long-term care law. The province came forward with the information after we spoke to someone whose loved one paid thousands of dollars due to the policy. Jennifer LaGrassa has the story.
Tamara Moyer looks at the $5,200 bill that her father-in-law paid. That's because the family refused to move him from a southwestern Ontario hospital to a long-term care home that they didn't want. Ontario's controversial Bill 7, which fully came into effect in November 2022, allows hospitals to charge patients who don't move to an available long-term care bed $400 a day. Advocates say the law forces vulnerable seniors to make difficult choices.
They really bully you and they really try to pressure you into that decision. And it's stressful enough when you've got somebody in the hospital and then you're trying to make decisions like that.
Moyer says her 93-year-old father-in-law was recovering from pneumonia and a fall that left him with a large gash in his head that needed staples. They denied the readily available bed because it wasn't in a convenient location. 13 days later, he got accepted to a home that they wanted. At that point, the bill had grown to more than $5,000.
I'm getting tired of hearing that no fine's been issued when our father-in-law was issued a fine.
But it wasn't the cost of the bill that made Moyer speak out. It was the fact that even after her father-in-law paid the hefty fee, she kept seeing media coverage that said no one had been issued any charges, according to the government. When CBC News first reached out about this and said it had seen a copy of an invoice, the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Long-Term Care sent a joint statement on March 26th. It said that no hospital has reported to Ontario Health or to the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Long-Term Care that a charge has been laid. But after asking more questions about what the process for reporting is and whether that exists, the Ministry of Health then confirmed that of the 20,000 people moved to care homes, 7 people have been billed. It said that the reporting process hadn't been followed, so the ministries and their ministers weren't made aware of charges. Even though both Ontario Health and the agency that oversees the long-term care home placement process, Home and Community Care Support Services, both knew charges existed. One lawyer found this concerning.
I think that the government doesn't pay enough attention at all in any part of the healthcare system as to what these charges are and who's charging them and in what circumstances. So I think it's very concerning in this case, given the magnitude of these charges, how much they are.
Moving forward, the government said it will be kept informed of future charges. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
It was definitely a wet and windy Wednesday across Toronto and the GTA. Gusts topped out around 80 kilometers an hour, and you can see the road conditions were a bit dicey for people as well. There was such heavy rainfall that the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority issued a flood watch this afternoon. By 8 p.m. this evening, the flood watch was lifted, but the authority says the region received 25 to 50 millimeters of rain in the past 24 hours. Right now, tonight, things are pretty clear and a lot less rain, but the stormy spring weather is not over yet. Toronto is under a special weather statement with the rain set to transition to snow as the temperature drops. Let's bring in Colette Kennedy now. And Colette, the rain didn't bug me too much today, but snow this late in the season, now that is unwelcomed.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. I mean, we certainly do have all kinds of different conditions coming through. And yes, a newer one now is we're seeing that rain kind of mixing over to, at least in some cases, some wet or light wet snow. In other cases, it's going to be heavier. So still under the special weather statement for us through the GTA. But it's as you get towards Eastern Ontario, you see a weather advisory. So if you are going to be doing any traveling, not just tonight, but tomorrow, even into Friday, still this thing lingers. That's where the winter weather travel advisory is. And then into eastern Ontario, snowfall warning, 15 to 20 or 25 centimeters of snowfall there. Still significant rainfall to the north, not that we are out of it. And then the snowfall warning picks up again north from there. And of course, there have been the winds as well, another component to this. So just overnight tonight, our temperature just above freezing. That's why we're getting into this kind of mixing. At times may dip just towards 1 even. And then 3, the daytime high tomorrow. The winds at times will back off a little bit, but still kind of gusty, 30, 40 kilometers an hour. And for Windsor, 3 tonight, and tomorrow still some wet weather there. It will be lighter in nature. You're going to be under less of an influence from this system, but it is just so broad that it's having an impact well beyond the Great Lakes region. So you can see more of that snowfall closer to the lakeshore. We get into that mixing or rain, especially up against the lakeshore where things are a little milder. Even as we get some mixing or bit of accumulation trying to take place into the GTA, it's going to be hard to come by, a centimeter or 2, but really then just melting away on contact. So I'm keeping the numbers very low. As you travel northward, that's where it starts to pick up. And we'll show you those in just a second. But I do want to point out as well, some mixing in southwestern Ontario and then becoming more showers and then back towards mixing again Thursday night. And even on Friday, still a lot of cloud cover and at least some light showers or flurries around. So those winds, they back off for southwestern Ontario, still strong in eastern Ontario, and then still a little bit gusty through tomorrow afternoon. Additional rainfall, 10 to 15 millimeters. It's been more significant in eastern Ontario, but that is changing over to the snowfall that they're dealing with there. These numbers very high. A lot of that will melt or compress on contact too. So I do expect those to be a little bit lower, but still 20 to 25 centimeters there towards the nation's capital. 3 tomorrow, 6 on Friday, and then we're going to do it, Chris. We're going to get out of this thing as we go into the weekend.
Yeah, looks like a beautiful weekend. Okay, thank you, Colette. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.